Today I'm gonna explain an adventure, fantasy, and romance film called Another Version of You. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. Though it's a supposed happy day celebrating the marriage of Diggsy's best friend Suzette, Diggsy can't bring himself to be ecstatic as he chooses to wallow by the sidewalk. Diggsy's sister Daphne checks in on him and tells him that Suzette isn't the only woman in the world. Still, Diggsy laments over missing his chance to be with Suzette. Anyhow, Daphne reminds him not to miss the reception, but he does because he decides to go out alone instead. In his drunken stupor, he leaves several voicemails to Suzette, bearing his feelings for her. At the bar, a man, Mortimer, approaches Diggsy and pours him a drink. With his friendly personality, Mortimer opens up to Diggsy about his own love life problems and how his loved one cheated on him with his best friend. To cope with the revelation, Mortimer ends up drinking himself away and meets a mysterious woman who hands him a piece of paper, which he gives to Diggsy, saying he looks like he could use it. Without any more explanation, Mortimer leaves, so Diggsy takes the piece with him. Opening it, he finds a key and a note explaining what it's about. A key that opens any door with a keyhole which brings him to a parallel universe. But the catch is that there's no going back once he closes the door. The next day, Diggsy empties his pockets and comes across the key again. Arriving at the library, Diggsy reminisces about going out drinking with Suzette when he invited her to confess something important. But all he says is that he's writing a romance novel. Nonetheless, Suzette is very supportive. Their conversation is stopped when a man tells him to move, saying he needs to beat someone at arm wrestling. Now thinking about the key, Diggsy writes down the pros and cons of leaving his own universe and then goes to the library to read books about parallel universes. While at the library, Diggsy considers using it already but stops when someone uses the door. Continuing to learn about the theory, Diggsy spends his time at the coffee shop but panics when the waitress drops by to leave his bill, so he hurriedly leaves. Back in his apartment, Diggsy attempts it again but stops when Daphne knocks on his door, chewing him off for missing the reception. But then, she comes across Diggsy's pros and cons list, so Diggsy finds no other choice but to explain the key and how he got it. Hearing the explanation, Daphne finds it unbelievable. Still, Diggsy doesn't back down from hoping it might be true. Thus, Daphne supports him, encouraging him to try. Preparing for his multiverse trip, Diggsy dresses up snazzily and even packs a few things to bring with him. But as he opens the door, all they see is Diggsy's apartment hallway. Still, Diggsy holds out hope, so Daphne pushes him out the door before closing it on him. Trying to go back inside, Diggsy notices that Daphne locked him out, so he continues to knock, but an elderly woman greets him instead, telling him to bug off. Using the key on the same door, he spawns at a harbor city, so he walks around and soaks in the beautiful place. After a while, Diggsy uses the key again. This time, he enters a dimension that takes him to Suzette's workplace. When he encounters Suzette, she approaches him angrily, upset that Diggsy missed her baby's birthday. Realizing that this universe's Suzette is also taken, Diggsy awkwardly leaves as Suzette tells him to go. Entering another dimension, he sits down at a cafe with Suzette and Daphne, only to find out that he's married with a child to a woman named Penelope. When Penelope passes them their baby, Diggsy just freezes up, not knowing what to do, so Penelope takes the child back. Excusing himself for work, Diggsy leaves, but Penelope catches on to his weird behavior and follows him to the door. Penelope points out his weird outfit, different cologne, and lack of wedding ring, and asks whether Diggsy is cheating on her. Not knowing how to deal with the situation, Diggsy denies it before leaving through the bathroom door. Continuing his quest, Diggsy goes through door by door, jumping from one universe to the next, where a blue-haired Suzette is very ecstatic to see him again. Pulling him to a diner, blue-haired Suzette doesn't stop chatting about the most random things and even mentions that her mom got mad when Diggsy filed a restraining order against her. When Suzette invites him to meet her pet, Diggsy excuses himself to the bathroom to catch a break, but Suzette follows him. Opening the bathroom door to check on Suzette, Diggsy comes face to face with her as she tries to peek through, asking if he's okay. Unable to take it anymore, Diggsy opens the door to another universe again, apologizing as he leaves blue-haired Suzette. In the next universe, Diggsy stumbles upon Suzette at the beach, who greets him happily and asks him to put sunscreen on her. However, this Suzette is already seeing her own Diggsy, who becomes confused upon seeing him. Jumping to another universe, Diggsy finds himself in Reykjavik, where Suzette greets him from behind, surprised but happy to see him. Then, he also comes across a universe where he's with a pregnant Suzette and another woman on the couch, weirding him out. Much to his dismay, there's also a universe where he and Suzette never met. In the Reykjavik universe, Diggsy gets along well with the party girl Suzette, spending time together downing drinks. Meanwhile, he continues to come across different universes that aren't the right fit for him, such as one where Suzette has a daughter and another one where Suzette is dating some other guy. In a universe with a pregnant woman, Abby, Diggsy is feeling her pregnant stomach. Then, there's also a universe where Suzette and Diggsy live together, so Suzette wakes her Diggsy and confusingly points toward the universe-jumping Diggsy. However, Diggsy thrives in Reykjavik and ends up getting intimate with Suzette, but stops because he needs to pee. Due to his inebriated state, Diggsy accidentally opens the door using his key. Realizing his mistake, Diggsy tries to return but can no longer do so. After spending a while going from one universe to the next, Diggsy takes a moment to wash his clothes, so he stands at the laundromat shirtless. When he gets to a coffee shop, he attempts to steal some bread, but the barista, Gwyneth, appears, asking if he wants the usual. Not knowing who she is, Diggsy just agrees. When Gwyneth says she'll add it to his tab, Diggsy just accepts the offer. Rushing to his seat, Gwyneth confronts Diggsy about his odd behavior, wondering why he's acting like he doesn't know her, then not knowing their inside joke about having tabs because they actually don't have one. Before Gwyneth could continue speaking, her universe's Diggsy walks inside the establishment, so Diggsy hides under the table. After the other Diggsy gets his usual order and leaves, Gwyneth returns to the hiding Diggsy and asks what he is. Then, Gwyneth introduces herself before letting him explain. Unfortunately, a customer walks in before they can start conversing, so Gwyneth makes him wait for the end of her shift. At a bar, they talk about Diggsy's quest for Suzette. Still, Gwyneth points out that it seems meaningless to chase after Suzette in that way because other universes' Suzettes are technically strangers to him. Afterward, they just start getting to know each other, and Gwyneth ends up inviting him back to her place to try her 18-year-old bourbon. Back at her place, they sit down for another round of drinks, and Gwyneth kisses Diggsy before inviting him to play strip karaoke. Then, they play some Scrabble and make a tower out of snacks before passing out on the couch together. When he wakes up the next morning, Gwyneth is sleeping on top of him. Asking what happened, they recount the details of the night before Gwyneth offers to make him food. Later that night, they watch The Matrix of Gwyneth's universe, where Will Smith plays Neo. Then they have another round of drinks. Talking about his life, Diggsy explains that Suzette and Daphne have been best friends since they were younger, and he always waits for Suzette to kiss him. Finally leaving that universe, he ends up at a house's pool area and encounters a flabbergasted Daphne. Tearful, Daphne is shocked to see him, but before Diggsy could explain, Daphne says he was already dead. Without another word, Daphne goes to hug him, making them fall into the pool. Inside her house, Daphne gets the full story from Diggsy, so she asks how the parallel universes work. Thus, Diggsy explains using a jar of candies and tells her that the key lets him jump between universes. But then, Daphne tells him that the Suzette in her universe isn't the nicest person, so they never became best friends. The next morning, Daphne notices Diggsy is about to leave, so she desperately tries to make him stay, saying he doesn't have to leave for Suzette, and she could just introduce him to her other friends. Still, Diggsy must move on, even when Daphne jumps on him. At the door, Diggsy crosses the next universe, but Daphne goes for one last hug, so the door closes in on him, taking her away from her own universe forever. Slumping on the floor, Daphne cries as she freaks out, which frustrates Diggsy too. Later, they leave the place they came out from after Daphne takes a shower and steals clothes from whoever owns the apartment. Trying to stay positive, Daphne asks how his key works again, but then she sees Penelope, her old college roommate, who comes rushing to greet her with a kiss. It turns out that in this universe, Penelope is dating Daphne. Then, Penelope asks Diggsy how Suzette is, so Diggsy stutters to say she's good. When Penelope leaves, Daphne says they should go too because it means Suzette is already taken into this universe. Now, the siblings continue to jump from one universe to the next, simply enjoying all the cool places they get to and having fun looking around even without looking for Suzette. While they rest for a bit, Daphne asks why Suzette, so Diggsy says he has a memory of playing hide and seek with Suzette where they hid behind the bushes, and when Suzette smiled at him, he knew that was the moment and have loved her ever since. Trying to sleep, Daphne can't stop thinking about her kiss with Penelope, wondering why Penelope's tongue is so soft and whether all girls' tongues are soft too. Letting Daphne open the next door, she happily enters a Halloween party and forces Diggsy to relax and have fun. After a while of drinking alone, Diggsy checks on Daphne, only to find out that she's been telling random strangers about the key. When two guys, Franklin and Kyle, ask how it works, Diggsy tries to play dumb and pulls Daphne away to leave, but Franklin blocks Diggsy at the door, taking the key away from him before pushing him away. While other guys hold on to Diggsy, Franklin tries the key but sees nothing of note on the first try. When Franklin tries again, everyone sees that it does work. While everyone is in shock, Diggsy takes the key and pulls Daphne into the next universe, but Franklin stops them again, so Diggsy pushes him outside and closes the door on him, opening another universe for them. Diggsy just leaves as Kyle asks whether Franklin will be coming back. In the next universe, they recuperate at the bar, where they meet Suzette, who's a cool bartender. Complimenting each other's looks, Daphne and Suzette hit it off immediately. Then, Suzette turns to Diggsy, saying she used to have a crush on him back then, making Diggsy trip over his words as he tries to compliment Suzette too. Wanting them to catch up, Suzette invites them for drinks after her shift. When Suzette leaves to get them a drink, Diggsy points out how Daphne was flirty with Suzette. Later, the three catch up over more drinks and just talk about their lives. As time goes on, Daphne and Suzette become closer and closer to each other until Suzette invites them back to her place. As another round of drinking ensues, Diggsy is soon unable to keep up and starts dozing off the couch. Meanwhile, the two women leave to continue their business. Waking Diggsy up, Daphne confesses that she kissed Suzette and apologizes because she ends up connecting with Suzette in a beautiful, loving way. Understandably, Diggsy is upset, saying they just met yesterday, and he was the one in search of Suzette. Dropping into their conversation, Suzette offers to let them stay in her place, to which Daphne happily agrees. On the other hand, Diggsy walks outside before returning to the apartment and saying his farewells. Certain that she wants to stay, Daphne gives him one last hug before Diggsy moves on with his quest. First, he walks around the beach before getting to Suzette's apartment. However, he finds out that this universe's Suzette is terminally ill. Surprised to see him, Suzette points out that he never returned many of her phone calls, so Diggsy explains that he isn't the Diggsy she knows. At first, Suzette doesn't seem to believe him, but Diggsy apologizes for either way. However, when Suzette asks to see his arm, she notices that he doesn't have the tattoo of her universe's Diggsy. Then, Diggsy starts talking to her about his universe's Suzette, then shows her the key. Afterward, Suzette tells him that she isn't who he's looking for, and that Diggsy needs to know what's really important. Finishing their conversation, Diggsy kisses her on the forehead before leaving to move on and proceeds to jump from one universe to the next. However, he isn't as excited to sightsee anymore as he wallows in frustration at the lack of positive results. Leaving the coffee place, he bumps into a new Gwyneth and ends up following her back inside to keep his eyes on her. Noticing this, Gwyneth asks if they know each other, so Diggsy just says that she reminds him of someone. When Gwyneth asks Diggsy to tell her all about this someone, he ends up telling her everything, even showing her how the key works. Back at her place, Gwyneth takes her top off in front of him before inviting him to share an 18-year-old bourbon. So Diggsy mentions that he drank bourbon with another Gwyneth before, saying some people are just themselves no matter what. Again, they end up kissing, and Diggsy stays the night. Waking up the next day, Diggsy fondly looks through Gwyneth's photo albums, and Diggsy continues to stay with Gwyneth even to the point of looking for a job, so Gwyneth invites him to work at the coffee shop with her. However, he also ends up working with Gwyneth's ex, Kirill, who tells Diggsy he's watching him. Later that night, Gwyneth asks what Diggsy plans to do with the key, so Diggsy says he plans to give it to someone. However, Gwyneth says they could use it in the future. Now leaving the key in a jar, Diggsy goes to the library and comes across a typewriter. Later, he tells Gwyneth that he wants to write a book about his journey. At work, while Diggsy is manning the cashier alone, he encounters Suzette, who's surprised to see him. Though glad to see him, Suzette can't find the words to say, mentioning that she wrote a speech for when she sees Diggsy again. But before she can continue, Suzette notices that Diggsy is missing his birthmark, so he tries to brush it off. Noticing that he's acting strange, Suzette asks for an explanation and invites him out for drinks. Looking at Kirill, Diggsy ends up agreeing to the invitation. Just then, Gwyneth comes back. Later that night, Suzette and Diggsy end up catching up as Diggsy tells her about his quest. Meanwhile, this universe's Diggsy is married to another woman already. Pointing out that Diggsy is so much like her Diggsy, Suzette asks whether she has the same memories as Diggsy's Suzette. It turns out they both have the hide-and-seek memory, which is one of Diggsy's favorites. Back home, Diggsy doesn't share the details of his night as he kisses Gwyneth, but she excuses herself to get something special for Diggsy. Just then, Suzette knocks on their door and lets herself in as Diggsy opens it for her. Explaining, Suzette mentions that she used to be engaged with her Diggsy, but she ended it and regretted it ever since. Walking closer to him, Suzette asks what if she's the Suzette he's been looking for. Before he could answer, Suzette kisses him, which Gwyneth walks in on. Angry, Gwyneth doesn't let Diggsy explain as she opens the door using the key, telling both to be happy somewhere else. When Gwyneth calls Suzette needy, the latter gets angry and shuts the door on her, so Diggsy starts tearing up while Suzette apologizes. Heartbroken, Diggsy walks away as he wallows in his tears, spending time in different places to think. Then, he throws the key at the river before continuing to walk around aimlessly. Soon, he ends up getting his own place, exercising, and even bought a typewriter to finally start writing. Slowly able to furnish his new home, Diggsy soon finds new friends as well. Then, he's finally able to finish pages of his manuscript. At a bookstore, the cashier asks if Diggsy found what he was looking for, so Diggsy says, sort of. Asking for a cafe recommendation, the cashier happily recommends him a place. On the way there, Diggsy passes by a short-haired Gwyneth.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.